Hi everyone, how are you? I hope you're doing fantastic. I'm doing very well. This camera's kind of high. I I've been thinking a lot because, this whole memory thing we've been going through, basically rehashing our whole lives to call judgment. Well, that wasn't that bad because I pretty much healed from all that as I went anyway, but it was good to feel like I was heard by somebody besides myself and God. Um and it kind of cleared up a lot of stuff, probably magic maybe. And now I've just been thinking about all these good old memories, mostly of Mark, of course. But him and I used to have the most amazing adventures. I'm telling you. It didn't matter. He always lived at home with his wife in Michigan, but wherever I went, Mark always ended up coming, a few times to visit somehow, or I'd go get him. Anyways, we'd go on tour and do all this fun stuff, especially after Steve died. Because when Steve died, I didn't have anybody except for Mark. And so I was stopping in Michigan a lot and spending a lot of time at Mark's house. Well, we decided to go on tour once. It was a government mule tour. And I had this car I had it when Steve died, and my energy, I don't know if you guys could probably relate to this, but when I'm going through something emotional, I will just blow circuits everywhere. Like just shit. Like my car started on fire. I've started 2 cars on fires, electrical fires. They just go. They just combust. Anyways, that's kind of what was going on with this car that I had driven back to Michigan at the time. The headlights were flashing on and off. The radio would come on and off, and it was like, oh shit. And then it eventually did start on fire. So anyways, but Mark and I had a tour planned, and there was no stopping us. We just decided what we wanted to do for fun. And that was kind of part of it too, is I needed to have some fun. So Mark's like, we're going to go have some fun, and he did. He did his best. He went on some major tours with me. And he was sick at the time. I had to get him to quit drinking and stuff because he was pissing blood, but he did. I was like, you can't die on me from liver failure, dude. I can't. And so he did. He went to the hospital and he detoxed for me. And he stayed sober for a long time. God bless his soul. He did that down in Austin for me. Thank you, Mark. But anyways, we were on our way to government mule tour, and we didn't have a car anymore. And so we decided we were just going to take the Greyhound. And we were literally going across the country. Well, we were going from Michigan to Austin because I still had my house in Austin. So we were going to just take a Greyhound from Michigan to Austin and hit all the government mule shows on the way. And we reformed the whole route. Greyhound will give you a route, and we replanned it. We're like, no, we need to stop in Mobile, Alabama, and all this crazy shit. Oh, Mobile, Alabama. Oh my God. Anyways, actually that was a different trip. That was with Steve. We almost got killed in Mobile, Alabama. Because Steve doesn't take shit, and it was all over $3. Oh my gosh. But anyways, no, we rerouted to Little Rock, Arkansas, and we went and saw a show there. We ended up having to walk 20 miles to get to it because the bus stop in every town is always in the ghetto. And, it was I don't remember where it was. Honestly, Little Rock was a weird town. It's really spread out. But we tried to get on the highway. It was 20 miles from where the venue was. It seems like it. I mean, that doesn't even sound right, but that's what it was a long way. There was no walking it, or we didn't think. And so we got on the highway, we started hitchhiking. and we got pulled off the highway by the cops. Like, I don't even think we had our thumb out for more than 2 seconds. Like, they already had their eyes on us and they were pulling up and they're like, nope. And we're like, oh my gosh. So we had to walk the whole way to the show. And we went through the worst part of Little Rock, Arkansas. I don't really, I've driven through there a bunch, but this was the first time I was like in the thick of it, And we went through this one area that we ended up going into the gas station, and everybody was looking at us like, oh my gosh, like they were scared for our lives. They were all black. And they were looking at us like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? Like, you're gonna die. Like, that's what they were looking at us like. We're like, And Mark and I are from Midland, where there is no, it's like with Dow, there's people from all over the world. Like, no one here is prejudiced. Everybody's the same, And so, oh God, what was I saying? Oh, so we're not really, well, Mark's been to prison, so he gets the picture a little bit better than I do, but I'm not thinking any much of it. And then we go in the gas station, and the guy behind the counter, he looks like he's straight out of the Allman Brothers. He's like a Southern old boy, and he's got a gun right on his hip, and it was like the Old West. I was like, oh my gosh, but he was the only white person in that I saw besides us. Anyways, we made it to that show. There's this other time. This is when after that, I ended up getting that truck I've talked about. And I drove up to Michigan, hung out with Mark for a little bit. And then, it was Government Mule Tour again. They were playing at Stubbs in Austin for 3 nights. And I was like, I'm going to Austin. I got to go. I stayed with them in Michigan for like 3 weeks. And he was like, I don't know, he was in a funk. So I was trying to pull him out of this funk. And I'm like, there's shows. And he's like, I don't know. And then finally I got him to go with me. And, oh, that was so fun. That's when he ended up quitting drinking for me. We missed the last night at Stubbs because he had to go to the hospital. But he did fine. He did really good. I picked him up 3 days later. I'm like, just go, I'll pick you up. Just call me, I'll pick you up, I promise. It doesn't matter what's going on. And I did, and he did. I kept my promise and picked him up after 3 days, and he kept his promise and didn't drink for a long, long time. Until the end when I think he just gave up on living because he had a lot of health issues by that point. But anyway, so we had my truck, and I had a boy. After Steve, I don't know. I've told you I kept boyfriends. I just keep a boyfriend, okay? And they were never adequate, really, but they kept me company, and I was really in major need of company. But it just reminded me of my boyfriend at the time was driving, and this guy named James was in the passenger seat, and Mark and I were squished in the middle. And you know that song, stuck in the middle with you, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yeah, Mark and I just looked at each other and just the biggest grins. I mean, Mark was so smart. You know what I mean? When you know. We were thinking the exact same thing at the exact same time. And that's usually how it went with us. But we wanted to get an ounce of weed. And James knew where to get some. So we went to this apartment complex, and Mark and my boyfriend at the time and I sat in the car and waited. Well, it was a flippin' setup. I don't know if they were watching the house or whatever, but immediately cops come in, like the whole place surrounded. You know the drill. So we're pulled out of the car. We're sitting on they pull the back tailgate of my truck down, and they got Scotty, me, and Mark sitting on the tailgate. And they're like, you're buying drugs and all this, and we're like, no. This is one of those times that I was just like, I'd had enough of telling cops the truth and going to jail over it. So I was like, no, absolutely not. and Mark's like, oh no, me neither. And Scotty's like, no, no. And it was so funny because they're like, all right, all right. And they look at Scotty, they're like, do you smoke pot? And he goes, no, no, sir. They look at me and they're like, do you smoke pot? And I'm like, oh no. And they look down at my shirt and they're like, what's with the weed, the pot leaf on your shirt? And I was like, this is artwork. I thought it was a maple leaf, like a Canadian maple leaf. It's a beautiful embroidered shirt. I really love artwork on my clothing. And then they look at Mark and they said, do you smoke pot? And he goes, no. And then they look down at his shirt and his shirt says Hash Bash, Ann Arbor Hash Bash on it. And they look at him like, you think we're an idiot? And he's like, well, maybe a little. That shit was hilarious. James did end up going to jail that night for buying that weed, but it was not for sales. It was not for sales. Those were good times. You know, I was thinking about my memory earlier and how when I was a kid, I recall having photographic memory for a long time, about till 7th or 8th grade. And then, except for that one specific incident I told you about. But basically I had photographic memory and I would remember, like, okay, say I would meet somebody. I would remember their parents' name. I mean, people that talk a lot. I would remember the names of their dogs, their parents, the street they lived on, you know, where their grandparents lived, all of that, right? And then I would run into them, like in a friends group. They would be like in, you know, certain friends groups or whatever. I would run into them again, and they would literally like come up to me and like shake my hand and say, you know, hi, I'm so-and-so, nice to meet you. And I would just be like, oh my God, I literally already know your life story. And so that used to get on my nerves, that I just remembered everything and people didn't even know who I was. And I knew everything about everything. It was just weird. And then another thing that used to bother me was movies. Having all that movie mumbo jumbo in my head. It was just so like distracting. And so one day I was in 7th or 8th grade when I prayed to God. I was just like, listen, I don't want to remember everything. Can we like cut down on this memory thing? I don't want to remember movies. That's too much information. And I don't want to remember about people's personal lives that have nothing to do with me. Like, I don't want to remember people that have nothing to do with my life journey. And it like immediately stopped. I can't remember people I've met that I should probably remember. You know, it's actually kind of embarrassing. And I also don't remember movies at all. I will watch a movie halfway through and be like, I've seen this before. My phone's about to die. But yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, I used to have a photographic memory. And now I feel like I do if I want to. It's selective. And maybe I'm trying to get that memory back altogether because I don't really have the pain and blockages that made me not want to have any memories or certain memories. Or, you know, like memories of people just hurting my feelings. Like, what did it matter if I knew their shit? It didn't really matter. What mattered was I knew everything about them and they didn't know my name. That's what mattered to me. So, like, that stuff doesn't matter to me anymore. Like, I literally don't care if you know my name or not. I don't care if you like me or not. You know what I mean? After defeating your own mother, that shit just goes out the window. I just don't care. And not only that, but I'm comfortable in my skin. Obviously, I can sit here and tell you my life story. I'm comfortable. I'm not ashamed of anything I've done. Even the things that I have been ashamed of, I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Because it's all about learning and nobody's perfect. So, you know, I'm very non-judgmental of others. I've always been that way, but it's like kind of for the first time in my life, I'm not judgmental of myself either, which feels really good. Because I'm actually a pretty cool person to have in your corner. You know what I mean? It's nice to have me in my corner again. So, anyways, I'm gonna cut this now. Sorry I didn't get to a reading, but my phone's gonna die, and so I'm gonna charge this, and next time I'll just do a reading. I love you guys. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.